I'm ready. We may be gone, but we're not forgotten. The chance to do a show for children was just, that's wonderful. And I got paid for it, too. Not well, but I got paid for it.
When he told me he did Bumpity, I was like, oh my God, that's my earliest memories of television. And I was like honored and to meet him and to talk to him.
People knew who Bumpity was. They didn't know what he was, but they knew who he was.
There's this piece of sod that talks to a worm.
You never know about Fred, he's got something going all the time here.
They have a librarian come in and read library books.
And I brought a present to share with you, a story called Countdown to Christmas.
And then the piece of dirt is very nice to everybody and polite and says goodbye, and that's the show.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for bringing us that nice story.
You're very welcome.
I hope we'll see you again sometime.
Bumpity likes to be the star. And when he gets a dream, he always sees himself in the middle of the picture.
People liked to sit on the set because it was so fun and so friendly.
And if somebody gave me a chance to do the show again, I'd be in there in a New York minute.
Yes, it reminds me, Bumpity said, well, if you come down to Bumpity Park,
Remember, kids, when you're down at Bumpity Park and you step on a lump in the lawn,
be sure not to step on it.
be careful, because it might be me.
It might be me.
Yeah, that's Bumpity, all right.
See you next week. Goodbye.
He took out the puppet out of his suitcase and showed it to me. And it was pretty exciting. And I didn't want to see it until there were cameras rolling and it was being recorded.
They have their own sense of time. Is the puppet an animal? An animal? An animal? Whose hand is controlling the puppet? It is a test. A test.
When I'm done, I'm done. I said I can, stop. And
I know what you're up to.
okay. At the end of the day, enough is enough, and I don't need any more of that.
Oh my goodness sakes.
Bumpy documentary? Is that what this is? Who's Bumpity?
Man, I watched Bumpity when I was a little kid. He's a bump in the grass, right? One of the last, real children's-oriented shows, that the Portland area ever had. We don't have that anymore. I love Bumpity, man!
My name is Bumpity, that's what everybody calls me, but I've also got another name, which is Alexander J. Bump. Channel 2 was going to do a kids show. They wanted it just for kids, up to maybe 10 years, 12 years old. I was working for OMSI at the time as their exhibits director. And I was also doing a couple of television shows on Channel 2. And so the director talked to my friend Bob, and he said, have you got any ideas? And Bob said, yeah, I think I do. I said, well, what are you going to call it? And he said, well, there was my little nephew was going down the stairs. He's about 2 years old, 2.5 years old, and he was bouncing from step to step and shouting at the top of his lungs, Bumpity, 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 every time he would bounce off a step. And I said, but that name Bumpity just strikes me as being a wonderful name. And, have you thought about having a puppet? And he said, well, what kind? And I said, I can kind of see it. That evening after work, I went over to a discount fabric place, and there was a piece of material, green, kind of shaggy material.
And I took it home and I started working on it. I sort of was sewing this thing together. I took a piece of felt and made his mouth, kind of a yellow mouth, and another piece of red felt. I had some stuff and I made his tongue. And a couple of ping pong balls with buttons on them for eyes. And here came this puppet.
And next morning, there I was. And in all my pristine effulgence.
And the next day I called Wayne and I said, I've got a puppet for you. He was kind of surprised. He thought maybe a week, you know. He came over, he took one look, and he said, that's Bumpity. That's Bumpity. He said, how does he sound? And I said, well, considering everything, I think he'd probably sound a little bit like this. I mean, look at there. You know, how else could I talk?
We'll be back in just a minute, boys and girls. Fred, sometimes you are an absolute caution.
Can you tell me what you've been doing during your retirement?
Well, I hate to tell you, but I kind of been taking it easy in a suitcase most of the time. It's not much work for out of work bumps, you know.
I suppose not.
No.
How did that get down there, Fred? Have you noticed we seem to have company this morning?
Oh, hi there! Whoa!
Whoa! Those things don't show up all the time, and you got to take advantage of them. A marshmallow this time. Yeah, marshmallow.
Bumpity, you're on!
So, if you don't mind my asking, what are you exactly?
Well, actually speaking, you know, I've been asked this a lot, and I am a bump in the lawn in what really is officially known as Bumpity Park.
Right here, actually where I'm sitting right now is right in Bumpity Park. It started in '71. I was actually the floor director, and my biggest responsibility other than setting up the set was to hold the book and turn the pages of the book. The story lady would read along, the director would read along, and then the director would call the page turn, and I would turn the page. And that was my first job really with Bumpity. And then in '72, when I started directing the show on a regular basis.
And I designed the set, did a little model, and my friend Lynn Muller, who was building the sets there by that time, did a wonderful job taking my little model and then translating it into one that worked very well for us. The basic set was like a rock wall, and in all actuality it was two pieces that bolted together. And it was made with plywood that was cut out with ribs, and then polyfoam covered all of those ribs. Over that polyfoam was put a heavy canvas, and it was all painted with scenic rock textures, except for the very top, which was painted green like there was moss and things, so Bumpity would be there.
And that really was a great set. It was, when that first rolled out, it was beyond our expectations.
I watched Bumpity if he came back. He was on Sunday mornings, and there was absolutely nothing else on TV because there was no cable.
What was it like when the TV would come on Sunday and there would be?
Yay, it's kids. Oh, Bumpity. Sunday always sucked. Starting off with Bumpity.
You know, when I couldn't do it any longer, and the guys are in a suitcase, you know, once in a while I do take them out, just because it sounds a little strange, I suppose. I really miss it. I can take them out, and all of a sudden there's Scotty there with his Scottish burr, and
Oh, glad to meet you. My name's Scotty McThussle.
and Digger with his down under twang, you know.
I was digging a tunnel from Perth to Sydney, and somehow I got a wrong turn someplace, and I tunneled and next thing you know, I come up in a place called Bumpity Park in the United States of America.
So he said I could stay, but I was to keep my clan away from it.
I think Fred was invented to give Bumpity a hand, really, you know, so he could hold things, so he could bring things up.
He wasn't on right at first. We just started the park, and then I don't know, maybe he heard us talking or something. The next thing you know, here's this big blue worm with a little plaid bow tie on, and said his name was Fred.
Poor Fred. He's eclipsed by Bumpity. And he's very sweet, and he's a worrywart.
And I was the only one, you know, that could figure out what he was saying, because he talks high worm.
You know, Bumpity would go, "Oh, Fred's just told me that someone from the library is here to read another book."
Oh, what's that, Fred? You're kidding. Oh, Fred just told me that you're retiring from the library. Is that right?
Yep. He was reminding me about the time that we built a motorcycle for him, a wormocycle, I guess you would call it, and he got arrested.
We arrest Fred for riding on a motorcycle around the park. But he's a nice cop, and he says, you know, I don't want him to get squashed on the pavement.
Poor little Fred. He just goes along because Bumpity's going somewhere.
Then there was one time when Fred was superworm.
The story of how this tiny creature grew to young wormhood, of how he displayed amazing physical powers unknown on this planet. It's Superworm! Down, down, and away!
Bob asked me if I'd like to do the Christmas show.
What do you mean that Tony says she can't
And
be here? Well, did you try phoning Shari? Could she be
I
here?
didn't know the history of the Christmas show. So I said, sure.
You just take this right here. This thing that Fred's got. Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
Yeah. Now just open it up and look at it, see?
Okay.
Yeah, now, this is a script for a Christmas show.
I see.
Yeah.
How the Brunch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
And we didn't have very much time to do it. And I think anything that could go wrong went wrong. Stuff fell, the scenery fell, you name it, it went wrong, and we only had one shot at it, so we just had to keep going.
Drat it, I ache all over. What's the matter with you guys anyway? Goodness sakes.
Nobody wanted to do these things because they knew it was going to be a disaster.
I don't suppose you might be interested in coming around next Christmas, huh?
Well, no, I think I'm going to be out of town next Christmas.
It's funny, you're not the only person that keeps saying that sort of a thing here.
Someplace in the environs of Portland, Oregon, there is a little patch of ground that, you know, if you know the right way to get to it, you'll find it.
It's one of the world's smallest parks, and you know, it had a path through it, and there was Fred and I, and there was mostly surrounded by streets.
It's really a rather small park. You get more than one thistle and one mole and one worm and one bump, and you know, we'd have to expand.
The place it really was in kids' imagination. When they took us off the air, there were people came out in front of Channel 2 studios, and they really picketed and said they wanted us back.
The management at the time just thought that we sort of outgrew it.
I'm sure it was sad for Bob when they pulled the plug on Bumpity.
Well, Bumpity's been on for a long time, and we got this new show. We got to do something. Well, let's get rid of Bumpity and put popcorn in.
Oh, thank you. And we'll be back in just a minute, right? Thank you.
Bob, Wayne, good.
Thank you. So, what's up?
Bumpity, yes.
Bumpity.
There you go. Bumpity.
All right, thanks again. Excellent. All right, thanks again. Thanks.
Hey there, Bob. How are you, Bob? Oh, I'm good, Bumpity. How are you? Oh, I'm doing fine. Thanks for making me.
I mean, we've been working on that show now for 14 years.
14 glorious years, Bob. Well, the well has run dry and
There's no money for this? No money at all, huh? You know, I talk to people every single day, and they just go on and on and on about Bumpity.
They talk about Bumpity.
The crew loved it.
They talk about Fred.
Bumpity got stacks of fan mail.
They talk about Scotty.
Bumpity got calls and calls.
They're talking about all of them.
The other employees seem to really like it.
Goodbye, Bumpity.
No more Bumpity Park.
Nice to have you here.
Well, it's good to see you again too, Bumpity. And I brought a book today. It's The Tale of Jemima Puddle Duck by Beatrix Potter.
Oh.
Listen to the story of Jemima Puddle Duck, who was annoyed because the farmer's wife would not let her hatch her own eggs.
Really? I wonder why that was.
She set off on a fine spring afternoon along the cart road that leads over the hill. She was wearing a shawl and a poke bonnet.
That's not usual garb for a duck, is it?
He had a long bushy tail with which he was sitting upon, and the stump was somewhat damp.
I'm suspicious here.
Wink, he's winking.
He's winking, yes, the picture there. And he is, can I tell what he is?
Yes, you may.
He is a fox.
That's right.
Oh boy. That was an exciting story.
First thing I got to see on TV was a Bumpity program, because my parents said, you know, that's the kind of thing that if they're going to watch TV, I want them to watch something like that. They were fun, they were goofy, and they made you feel good, and it gave me a desire to read. The one thing watching Bumpity again reminded me is that it didn't all have to be perfect to actually touch somebody.
Okay, Bumpity, time to go. Pushing it, my roots there. Okay, into the wheelbarrow. Oh, gee, take it easy there. Oh my goodness sakes. An old cement wheelbarrow. I'm sure after all the years I was a star, now I'm in a wheelbarrow. The least you could have done was get me a limousine. Where's Fred? We can't go without Fred. I've always worked with Fred. My goodness sakes. Oh, my goodness sakes, Fred, you scared the dickens out of me. Come on, we got to go someplace. So, oh, yes, it's the Hollywood Library. We never were there before, but this will be a first, a second, and maybe the last. I don't care if you do have a helmet, you don't have a license, and it's not right for a worm to be going down the street on a wormocycle. I keep telling you that. Now, come on, climb in, and we'll do this the right way. Even if we do have to ride in a wheelbarrow, we'll do it with class. Class, Fred. Yeah, that's about right. Wheelbarrows. Okay, guys, here we go. Hey. Easy there. Yeah, sure. I ought to be happy that I'm anywhere.
This is my brother Pete, and I'm my brother Paul. We're twins. Are there any twins out here?
We have someone here named Bumpity, and he has a friend who's a worm, and the worm's name is Fred. Well, Bumpity and Fred the worm have been around for a long time, and they're here today hoping to meet up with some of their old friends.
That was good.
So, Bumpity, we have another special friend of yours here to read a story.
It's Bumpity! There's Bumpity and Fred! How are you? How are you?
We're just fine. Good to see you again.
I've missed you. I've missed you so much. I'll look around and see a rainbow following
It was like old times. It was really neat to see Bumpity in person.
It was so nice to see Bob and Bumpity and Fred Worm again.
Yeah!
We got more exposure through Bumpity than I think anything we ever did
It was amazing. Friends of ours would come up and say, I saw you on Bumpity. And I say, what are you don't have any kids, why are you watching Bumpity on Sunday morning?
I'll try, but it's gonna sound pretty weird. Hello everybody, I'm Bumpity.
When the show went off the air, you know, I felt like you were treated bad by the station, and they lied to your audience and told them that you had wanted to quit and wanted to leave, but really you were fired. And I know how it feels to be fired and so on. So I want to say,
understand.
Yeah, I want to say I'm sorry for Channel 2.
And I don't know what's going to happen to them when there'll be a time, because where I won't be here any longer. And at that time, I hope I've got some of the old Christmas scripts and things like that, and I'm going to try to gather together one of these days, get everything all together, and then perhaps we'll donate them to the Historical Society or something like that.
Oh, the agony, the agony.
Goodbye, everybody. Now, follow me. Bum bum da dum da dum 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 da dum da dum 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 da dum da dum dum.
Good night, Bumpity.